enjoy sports that make people work hard for their well-earned victories and truly captivate what it means to be a competitor in the inside. We live for those crazy overtakes, those once-in-a-million comeback stories that many drivers don't tend to have in their careers, and lastly, those lovable drivers, team principals, and even owners of the team that tend to leave an impact on the sport and people's lives through their tenacity and friendliness. Whether you're a Ferrari fan, a Lando Norris sub, a Daniel Ricciardo superfan, or what I like to call a Nikita spin-out enjoyer, we can all agree that Formula One is a sport that we all love and enjoy. As a new fan learning about the sport, I had one of the most exaggerated, controversial opportunities to be introduced to it by Netflix's hit show Drive to Survive. This show was amazing, and I just genuinely enjoyed all 4 seasons of myself watching it, and for the longest time I praised the directors and writers on making the sport seem so interesting to someone that didn't really enjoy racing at all until I watched the series. For the longest time when I was younger, I enjoyed racing games like Mario Kart, Need for Speed, and even Forza, which is honestly not a party game, but you know what I'm getting to. I never dipped my toes into any of the NASCAR or F1 games just because I always thought the sport was just bland, especially with NASCAR when you just go around in an oval, but that's my fault. I never understood the value and the intense rivalries and things like that happens in Formula One or any type of driving sport. There's always things that you just don't know of, and of course I just didn't know. And honestly, the only experience or exposure I ever had to the sport of racing was from the great legend Ricky Bobby. But I'm proud to say that this show proved me wrong. This show felt as if there was so much drama and passion from the drivers and teams of F1 that made me realize how crazy the sport can get, and that's what it's supposed to do. So cheers to you, directors, for creating a realistic approach of what F1 is supposed to seem like. But little did I know that this amazing show had some really weird controversy to it. That kind of makes me, as someone that has started to watch F1 every Sunday or every other Sunday when there's a race, and kind of dive into the behind the scenes that isn't actually the behind the scenes represented in Drive to Survive, that it kind of just has this dark, misleading approach, and it kind of sucks because it makes drivers not want to be part of this documentary series that should be a documentary when it's pretty much just a drama reality TV show. Hi, hey, hello, my name is ImHitch, aka Joe, and I'm back. It's been about 5 months. Welcome to the channel, and today we'll be talking about what makes Formula One's Netflix hit documentary Drive to Survive so good, but very controversial. Let's get one thing straight before we go further into the video. Yes, these two subjects in essence are the same thing, but the show Drive to Survive tends to be a bit more misleading than the actual sport and behind the scenes of what really goes on. And yes, I did my research, but before I can explain, we must start at the root, which is Netflix Drive to Survive. It was originally released after the F1 2018 season became a hit across the world, but the biggest boom was in the United States, which led to a lot of American folks finding out about the sport, aka me, this bozo. The documentary was planned to be something that F1's fans would honestly just eat up. It provided more insight onto drivers and teams, wins, losses, and personal life. It's something any super fan would love to watch just because it seems fun and unique. For the longest time I would see the show on Netflix, never understood the buzz about it until I started it 2 weeks ago. And ever since then, I've honestly been obsessed with the sport. Listen, I bought a Logitech G29 so I could play F1 2021 on my computer. With that being said, the Netflix show has definitely turned me and many others into fans. One of my favorite aspects about this show is the fact that it actually gives you insight onto the competitors themselves and the teams behind them. I honestly love that because not many sports let you see the person you enjoy watching behind closed doors. It's fascinating learning about what the drivers are doing day in and day out, because there are literally 20 people in the entire world that get to go onto that track and race their heart out as the red lights go off on Sunday. Maybe it's me, but honestly there's just something so surreal about seeing these famous people, these drivers that are so used to these really fast-paced conditions where they're literally putting their life at risk because they love that sport. They love the adrenaline rush. Seeing like doing normal people things, I guess. Like for example, in the show, we followed Daniel Ricciardo around at one point, I think in season 1, and he literally just goes to play basketball with like his best friend. Like imagine going to a basketball court and you're like, oh yeah, that's Daniel Ricciardo, a famous F1 driver that has definitely won a bunch of races before. Like to me, just seeing someone go from this like high octane sport to doing something so simple as shooting a basketball, it's really just interesting to me because I think a lot of times we forget as human beings that those famous people we watch or those people we idolize are actually human beings. They don't have people just doing things for them all the time. It's just so cool to me because you see these drivers just go from something like that to doing these high intense workouts, meeting with their engineers, talking to them just so they could get their team onto that podium that Sunday. Another aspect of the show that makes it so great is the fact that it is written and shot in such a way that it feels like you're watching a character arc throughout each episode. Like anyone could sit on the couch, pick a random episode, and probably not be lost because each episode is usually focused on one person or a team. It might be hard to understand the drama or the racing and, you know, the point system going on, but it's probably easy to explain if you have someone with you that knows about that particular race that happened that Sunday or even the episode itself. We all know character arcs are important as well. Any type of fictional show you heavily enjoy has to have one, because if it doesn't, then your show is flat and you literally have no direction or intent. You're not going to enjoy it and it's probably going to crash after season 1. It's interesting to think about how Drive to Survive was able to make these real life people seem almost like these exaggerated fictional characters that make people love or hate them drastically. Like for example, my favorite arc in season 1 and probably the most controversial is Daniel Ricciardo's and Max Verstappen's rivalry. Like I said, in these episodes they make Max out to be this young kid that can and will outperform Daniel. In many scenes of the show, Max is portrayed as a stone cold stern person that only wants to win and that's all he cares about, while Daniel is seen as this energetic hero, Red Bull's past and future. It's kind of like how in wrestling people are referred to as heels and baby faces. For example, Ricciardo would be something like a John Cena and Max would be more like a Brock Lesnar or Randy Orton. The show used the dramatics of the music and the outcomes of each of their races to present this idea of such a rivalry, which in my opinion created amazing television. I know personally these few episodes made me keep watching the show, and that's what the directors wanted you to do. They want you to keep going because it gives them money, you know what I mean? But it kind of sucks for the drivers because someone like Max Verstappen hated that.
They would fake a lot of stuff, and for me, that as a driver, I don't look at it as a fan. I think that's not correct, but I understand as a Netflix show, they want to make it more dramatic. Sometimes, you know, they faked a few like rivalries or whatever, which they don't really exist. So I decided to not be a part of it. You know, I didn't give any interviews after that anymore, really. Just because then there is nothing to show. There is nothing they can fake about you.
Like I said, Drive to Survive is great, but it makes people like Max never want to do an episode again, because why would he want to receive backlash for being the so-called villain when the rivalry, like I said, wasn't as toxic as it was portrayed? Another weird approach Netflix did was have interviews with the drivers and use their audio of answering these questions and pretty much clipping them out of context. Another rivalry created by the show is one with Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo. In this show, they create another false negative rivalry between the two. In their episodes, they pinpoint each other and create this type of scenario to where you're led to believe that Daniel seems to be stepping on the young toes of McLaren's up-and-coming driver Lando Norris, but in reality, they have a pretty much friendly rivalry and they're kind of like brothers to a sense, kind of like how Lando was with Carlos. In Max Verstappen's words, he says, "Lando and Daniel are two great people I know. They have really great characters, and immediately at the second episode, looks like they are not very friendly with each other." And for me, that's not correct, and that's why I'm also not a part of it. As you can tell, the series thrives off its theatrics and creates your classic reality TV feel. Growing up, if you watch MTV, this is the type of shit you would see on Jersey Shore. Instead, we are talking about a high-octane sport that could kill you at literally any second. Also, there is literally a clip of them reacting to the Drive to Survive show on McLaren's official YouTube account that literally shows how Drive to Survive creative storytelling sways things to create drama.
Daniel swerves at him, you see that? How dangerous that was.
Wait, that's not right. Wait, he forced me off. That's not for
Did I say that?
Yeah, but you didn't.
If you didn't hear it in the clip, Lando apparently states that he forced me off when Lando never said that during that part of the race in the episode. It's kind of hilarious how these drivers really call him out in the middle of reviewing the show, you know what I mean? Even though the show has created a lot of controversy, in my opinion, there's a lot that makes this documentary valuable and enjoyable for your average F1 noob, or whatever you want to call me, okay? I personally would have never gotten to the sport if it wasn't for this documentary, and I'm glad I got to enjoy it and learn about the different drivers of each team. Like for example, I remember feeling devastated when I found out in the show that Carlos was getting replaced on Renault and was like, what the f***? I started to see Daniel as this villainous dude that stole another man's job that I personally enjoyed watching. And then I started to realize, what the fuck is wrong with me? This is real life, not some random ass anime. But what the fuck? This documentary legit felt like a shonen anime. And honestly, maybe that's why I enjoy the sport and the documentary so much. It just feeds you that story that makes you love F1's competitive nature. Like for example, the rivalry between Red Bull and Mercedes is unmatched. It's a legendary rivalry that will not die in F1's history ever. Another thing I enjoyed was I like how everyone thought Racing Point was a fluke because of the billionaire's son becoming this racer on the team, but you come to find out this kid can race. On the topic of Racing Point, I enjoy that each season they were able to keep me up to date with the changes and controversy that I missed since trying to catch up on F1. Like I said, Racing Point had this huge episode where they pretty much quote unquote blatantly copied Mercedes' car from last year that won them the championship, and I thought it was really funny because it was spicy and was a legit controversy that was heavily followed. You got to see both perspectives play out: Red Bull, McLaren, and many other teams that were fighting so hard for the upper midfield championship position, going against these Racing Point cars and feeling like, what the fuck, this is wrong, while Toto and Mercedes was like, yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with this. It's completely legal. All they did was sell information to Racing Point, and that's pretty much it. It's completely legal under the FIA. And as we know, the controversy ended with just Racing Point only getting fined. It was just crazy knowing that this happened in F1. This doesn't happen a lot, which is really interesting. And I definitely enjoyed learning about that. If I never watched the documentary and I just was randomly learning about F1 through just watching the races, I don't think I would have ever found out about this. And honestly, Racing Point was really insane that year. I'm not a Racing Point fan, but I'm just speaking facts. And that's what makes F1 an amazing sport. It's very political. It's full of passionate drivers, workers, and fans that continue to make F1 a growing sport, and hopefully one that will last forever. I really enjoyed F1 Drive to Survive. I wish it wasn't as controversial as it really is. And honestly, would I tell you to go watch this documentary? Yes. Even if you enjoy racing at all, you would probably enjoy the series. Give it an episode or two. I'm telling you, it's worth it. That being said, my name's ImHitch, aka Joe, and thank you for watching this video or staying. I know I'm a bit of a bozo, but if you liked it, just subscribe, come hang out with me. And that's all, folks. Peace.